Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Awesome with C.O.D.Y. As usual, I'm your host, C.O.D.Y, and today we're continuing July's theme of awesome comedies from when I was growing up. I think is what I called it. Anyhow, today we're talking about Brewster's Millions. This is the 1985 adaptation of said book by George Barr McCutcheon. It's considered a comedy. Well, I'm not saying it is a comedy. I've never seen another version of it. There are English versions. I think there's like 6 of them. But the book came out in 1902. Like I said, it was written by George Barr McCutcheon. The book is a little different. I'll tell you about the book. And I'll tell you about the movie. Actually, we'll go who made it first, and then we'll go into the differences. Directed by Walter Hill. Walter Hill was a big dude in the 80s and a little bit into the 90s, but mostly the 80s. And he made some really good stuff. Most notably, I'll just fire off a couple of the big ones. So you have The Warriors, Southern Comfort, 48 Hours, Streets of Fire, Brewster's Millions. He wrote the story for Aliens. Let's see, Red Heat, another 48 Hours. Wrote and produced Alien 3. Then he directed Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis in 1996. And then a couple other things after that. And then he had a couple producing things television-wise. He did a bunch of stuff. I've only heard of like 2 things on this list. Deadwood he did an episode of, and he did 3 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, both HBO properties. So yeah, Walter Hill, director. Starring in the movie as Montgomery Brewster is Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, of course, stand-up comedian, virtuoso. Movie-wise, he's done some of the best comedies around that time. The Brewster's Millions, The Toy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Not that it's a comedy, but he was also in Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy and a bunch of people. I forget who all's in that movie. He was also in Superman 3. He played a computer hacker, believe it or not, way back in 1983, 2 years before Brewster's Millions. But yeah, that's Richard Pryor. He's pretty amazing. Amazing stand-up, amazing in several movies. But yeah, that's Richard Pryor. He plays Montgomery Brewster. Next up, we have John Candy. John Candy, of course, of SNL fame and many other things. SNL, right? I didn't even think about that. John Candy was on SNL for a long time, right? Or is that just me being dumb thinking he was on SNL a bunch? Well, I know he was on SCTV, where he knew a lot of people. I want to say maybe he was in one episode of Saturday Night Live, uncredited on that episode too. Why do I think he was on Saturday Night Live so long? Well, anyways, he was on SCTV, which was a variety show, much like Saturday Night Live, that had Rick Moranis and Steve Martin, and there's a bunch of people that was in that too, and I can't remember all of them top of my head. But it was Second City TV is what it's from. It's from Canada, and there's so many. Harold Ramis, the late great Harold Ramis. Eugene Levy, I found the list. Finding Catherine O'Hare, like I said, Martin Short, Dave Thomas, which Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis did Strange Brew together right towards the end. of the main run, I think, of SCTV. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that today. Anyhow, that's John Candy. Uncle Buck. He plays in Uncle Buck. He had he was he made, I don't want to say a cameo, but he was in Home Alone. He helped Kevin's mom get back to him. He was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, so many different things. I mean, he did so many great movies. Spaceballs, Little Shop of Horrors, Armed and Dangerous, Volunteers, Summer Rental, Splash, like I said, Uncle Buck. Who's Harry Crumb? That's a great one. Great Outdoors. Was the announcer in Rookie of the Year. Cool Runnings, obviously, great movie. Yeah, that's John Candy's amazing, man. Lost him too soon. But yeah, anyways, John Candy. And John Candy, his character's name is Spike Nolan in the movie of Brewster's Millions. Next up, we're going to rapid fire through these, is Lynette McKee. She plays the love interest in this movie. Went by the name of Drake was her last name. I can't think of her first name. I'm looking for it, and I don't see it. Why don't I see it? Angela Drake. But anyways, yeah, she's in this. She was in other movies I've seen her in: Jungle Fever, Malcolm X, He Got Game, Men of Honor. I think that's all I've seen her in. Well, I've seen other movies, but I can't remember being in any of those. But yeah, that's Lynette McKee. Next, after that is Stephen Collins. Stephen Collins, in the movie, plays Warren Cox, who is the, I guess you could say, antagonist in this. He's a stooge that plays in it, but he's best known for being the dad on Seventh Heaven. Reverend Eric Camden was in 242 episodes, directed 3 episodes of that show, by the way. A main role. He's been in a bunch of stuff, movie-wise, On Dangerous Ground, Jumping Jack Flash, The Big Picture, The First Wives Club, Blood Diamond. That's all I really know of those ones. Between the Lines is a good one too. Star Trek, the motion picture, he played Captain Commander Willard Deckard. I can't talk at all. And of course, in this one, in Brewster's Millions, he plays Warren Cox. Like I said, he's the best way to put it is antagonist for the movie itself. We have David White. David White in the movie plays George Granville. George Granville in the movie is essentially the executor of the will that leaves money. Oh, I'm sorry, no. He's one of the bank guys. Yeah, sorry, opposite. He plays one of the bank manager lawyers, right? Yeah, that's trying to get the money from Brewster. And I'll explain that more in a minute for people who haven't seen it. So yeah, that's David White, plays George Granville. Then next up we have Jerry Arbach. Jerry Arbach, of course, most well known for being in Law and Order. Forever. He was on Law and Order for where's the television? Law and Order for, what is that? 12 years. Played Detective Lenny Briscoe for 273 episodes. He was in that show. Then he was also in Special Victims Units for a couple times, and Homicide: Life on the Streets. And then Trial by Jury. Apparently, he was in 2 episodes of that. after he passed away. Oh, Criminal Intent. He was on an episode of that too, because he was like the main dude. Like he was like, when you think Law and Order, he's like one of the main dudes you're always gonna think of. But he's been in so many things, movie wise. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna mention the fact that he was Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, but he was. See, movie wise, besides the Beauty and the Beast movies, FX, love that movie. Dirty Dancing, Someone to Watch Over Me, Crimes and Misdemeanors. I don't know what a gnome named Gnome is, but a gnome named Norm, I don't know what that is, but it's a hilarious name. Toy Soldiers, was really good. I love that movie. Straight Talk, Universal Soldier. I did a voice in one of the Aladdin movies. But yeah, that's Jerry Arbach. Yeah, dude's awesome. I mean, he's amazing. He'd still be in Law and Order if he didn't pass away in 2004, probably. And then last I have noted on here, Rick Moranis was in. He played a small cameo in Brewster's Millions. He played Morty King, the impressionist or mock impressionist, right? Yeah, I think is what he refers himself as. But Rick Moranis, I mean, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movies, Ghostbusters 2, Louis Tully played Louis Tully in those. My Blue Heaven, one of my favorite movies with him and Steve Martin. Like I said, Spaceballs, Little Shop of Horrors, Club Paradise, Strange Brew, which I mentioned earlier. He played Barney Rubble in the first Flintstones movie, as well as the video game. Little Giants. What else? TV wise, SCTV, like I said, Second City Television. He was on Saturday Night Live as a host twice. I think it's the only thing he was really big on television wise was SCTV. But yeah, it's Rick Moranis. We all know him. We all love him. And yeah, so let me essentially break down the plot of Brewster's Millions, the movie, the 1985 Richard Pryor movie. So basically, Montgomery Brewster is a minor league baseball pitcher, technically relief pitcher. Good for 3 innings. He always says he can get any team out in 3 innings, which is what you want a relief pitcher to do. So, I mean, that makes sense. Listen to me talk sports like I know anything about it. Anyways, he plays for a minor league team called the Hackensack Bulls. He is like I said, he's the pitcher. His buddy Spike Nolan, played by John Candy, is their catcher. Anyhow, so after one night and a victory, him and Spike are out talking to some ladies. They get in a fight. They get arrested. They put on bail. They get fired from the team. A guy bails them out, brings them to New York, where he finds out that he has a great uncle who he is the last living relative of, and he bequeaths him $300 million in his will, but there's a challenge involved in it, and the challenge is this. He has 30 days to spend $30 million. If he does that without recurring any gains from it, so he can't, basically he starts his 30 days with only the clothes on his back, and he has 30 days to spend the $30 million without gaining anything. No income, no values. He can't just put it somewhere and wait for the 30 days to up. He has to squander $30 million. If he does that in 30 days, he then earns the $300 million fortune that his great uncle Rupert Horn left him, to essentially be his forever. Or he can take the Wussy law, or Wussy buyout, I think is what he called it, which is $1 million up front, forfeiting his $330 million inheritance to be then divvied up to charities via the lawyers that he's going in against. And so the other part of it is, if he can't do that in the 30 days, if he can't spend the 30 million in 30 days, he will lose it all. He loses all the money left over, doesn't get the million, and he doesn't earn the 300 million that's left over, or that's waiting for him. So he has a choice: take $1 million up front, and that's it. Try to spend $30 million in 30 days and win his inheritance of $300 million, or take the $30 million, not be able to spend it in 30 days and leave with nothing. He says he's gonna go for it. So the biggest difference in the book, again, I haven't read the book, but what I have read from the book is similar process. Uncle leaves Montgomery Brewster a large fortune. And mind you, this is 1902, so I mean, a lot of money. Leaves him $7 million, but he actually has 2 inheritances he earns. So that's a difference in this one. In the book, his great grandfather leaves him $1 million, but because of a rift between his great grandfather and his great uncle wants to spite his grandfather, so he makes a deal. He says, "I'll play this game with you if you can spend the $1 million that your great grandfather gave you in a year. You'll earn the $7 million that I've left you. Same caveats. He has to spend it all without gaining anything." So I'll read you the synopsis, or the exact wordings of what it is. So, where is it? So under the condition that he keeps none of his grandfather's money, so he can't keep any of the $1 million. He has to spend it all in a year. He has to spend every penny within 1 year, resulting in no assets or property held from the wealth at the end of that time. If he meets those terms, then he gets the full $7 million. If he fails, he remains penniless. So that is the book's version of it. Same thing applies to the movie, the 1985 Richard Pryor movie adaptation. He has the 30 days to spend $30 million, cannot gain any wealth from it, so nothing can come about it. He can't make investments. He can't buy anything. He can't just give it away. He has to use it, and he has to use it for services rendered from whoever he's paying for. So, for example, if he wants to hire a chef to cook all of his meals for 30 days, he has to pay him that, the whatever amount he pays him, and he's not allowed to get anything other than the services, so cooking, out of it. That makes sense to everybody? Is that how it works? Is that the easy way to put it? And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on. He's trying to do different things. A lot of the stuff he does backfires on him, and he actually ends up making more money. At one point, he makes an investment of this ludicrous idea to bring a iceberg from Antarctica down to the water lacking area of Iraq area for Iran farmers, I think is what they call it. Ends up that it turns out to be a good investment, and a big company buys it, making the stock of this company go from $1.50 to $9. And because he put $1 million in, he then he made like a bunch of money out of it. And he sold it before it was purely just the like whatever millions of dollars it would have been. And like, he's got John Candy trying to talk him out of it, but he can't. So I guess the one thing I skipped over is he's not allowed to tell anybody. So there's only 4 people living that are involved in this that know the rules of the game. Montgomery, so Brewster himself, the 2 lawyers, and the executor of the will. It's the only people who know of what it is. He's not allowed to tell anybody else about it. So he can't tell John Candy's character, Spike Nolan. He can't tell his best friend about it. He can't tell Angela about it, his love interest. He's gonna look like a fucking lunatic because he just basically inherited $30 million, and he starts blowing through it nonstop. And it all starts to go real well until he starts making money back on ludicrous bets or stupid investments that pay off, things like that. So he has to think of another way to do it. So then he runs for mayor of New York with only 10 days left of the election, which actually happens to be the day before he is supposed to be penniless come those 30 days. So he starts burning through his own cash, advertising, buying commercials, even outside of New York, on basically, they say at one point, all 52 states. So just in case any New Yorkers on vacation, they know what's going on there. And he makes the campaign none of the above, thinking it's ridiculous and no one's going to vote for him. And it ends up being that he starts to win and starts to become popular. So he has to drop out of the race, wasting all that money, of course. And then with his last $38,000, he throws a party that was supposed to be a celebration of him, his campaign, and his victory over the Yankees in a 3-inning charity event thing he was doing. And so he's thinking he's won. So he's going to trudge over there. Lost all of his friends. He lost Spike. Spike thinks he's insane. Angela thinks he's an asshole. All this stuff. And he gradually goes back. He just hates money, which is one of the reasons his uncle is doing it. And goes to basically say, hey, you guys, like, I'm here. Then he finds out that their stooge, Warren Cox, played by Stephen Collins, has actually withheld $20,000. And so with minutes to go, he has to find a way to spend it. So he basically takes the character of Angela, who's been his accountant during this, puts her on retainer for $20,000 to help him sue them, or to help him because he punched Warren, defend himself. And so she writes him a receipt, making him penniless again seconds before midnight, earning him the inheritance of $300 million. And all the stuff that goes on in between is just fantastically funny. And towards the end, it's very depressing, and it's interesting the way they kind of go, but it's a super funny movie. I love it. It's always one of my favorites with Richard Pryor, along with The Toy, which is another one with Jackie Gleason, which is amazing, which I'll watch at one point. And one of my other favorites, Hear No Evil, See No Evil, or See No Evil, Hear No Evil, with Gene Wilder. Another fantastic movie. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. So, for the folks who don't know, who haven't heard the last episode, the Awesome Comedies from my childhood. I did The Jerk last week. This week was Brewster's Millions. Next week will be Police Academy, and then History of the World Part 1, which will be the other one. I was going to do, I think last week I mentioned I was going to do Blazing Saddles, but I'm going to hold that for another time. because that one goes beyond being a comedy from my childhood, which I love, and there's a story behind it. But I'm gonna save that for another time. I thought Police Academy because I used to watch that all the time with my brother when we were growing up. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode. And as usual, like I say at the end of all these episodes, let's be awesome.